What's up, boys? It is the Rye Report. A little delayed because of the new box. We wanted to bring in the new box, see if it would do anything. At the very least, give people Book of Moon so we could see some better results. Changing up the graphics. Thank you, GN, for the graphics. Y'all let me know how you like it down in the comments. And I've got with me Negative1. Negative1, what's up, bud?
Hey, what's good? Glad to be here.
Hey, sounds good. All right, so you guys know who Negative1 is. Negative1, do you want to go over how you do your tier list? People know I do my tier list based off statistics, data, hard calculations from the power ranking. How do you do yours?
Generally, a lot of how I position a lot of the decks in tier lists, I look at how do these decks do against each other, and what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, and typically the decks with the least weaknesses will be in the tier 1, and then as you move down the tier list, you'll see more and more weaknesses or fewer and fewer strengths until you get into Rogue, where it's like there's very clear defining attributes that keep them in their position.
There you go. So you could say, in a way, Negative1 bases uh, his tier list off strengths and mostly weaknesses, which is very interesting. Not a lot of people look at weaknesses; they typically look at strengths. Where mine is going to be hard statistics. Listen, boys, I don't put much. The Rye Report's 90% statistics, 10% my opinion, and that 10% is usually like one. It's like Noble Knights and Rogue deck, which actually isn't here today. So starting off, tier 1. Oh boy, we agree. Harpy Lady. I don't even know if there's anything else left to say about Harpy Lady, but go for it. Why is Harpy Lady the tier 1 deck?
Harpy Lady is the tier 1 deck because it has the least weaknesses. I think it's very telling when you look at the format. I think a lot of people have talked about this as a very weak format. It's very you see a lot of rogue decks or a lot of decks. As you see, the top it's very small, but at the bottom it's bottom heavy. There's just a lot that can compete, even if it's not like on the same level as Harpy. There is just a lot that can join the meta and like compete, even if it's not winning every tournament.
There you go, pretty much. And I feel like a lot of that kind of just goes down because it's weird to see a deck like Harpy Ladies be our tier 1 when, not even that many formats ago, it was like barely tier 3. And then before that, it wasn't even tiered because Dark Lord and Blue Eyes were just the only two decks that were
Yeah.
relevant. So it's
So
it's it's
Harpy,
weird, right? Like, oh man.
yeah, Harpy. I think it ends up being tier 1 because it has the least weaknesses.
No.
So you look at in the past when it was going up against like Dark Lord, Blue Eyes, Full Power, and like more recently Automat Full Power. Um, those decks did well against Harpy, and so because of that, Harpy was not really that strong. It was maybe a tier 3 deck because it had that major weakness. Right now, Harpy doesn't have many good strengths, but it doesn't really have enough weaknesses for other decks to consistently capitalize. So there's very few decks that can consistently, have a more than like a 50% win rate, but it's very difficult to, get above that threshold.
There you go. I agree on all fronts. I think Harpies, there was a little bit of a, as the kids say, Monka S moment when DDD and D Hero showed up, but then they just put MST in the main deck, and it was like, oh, okay, this deck's just too flexible. Not enough weaknesses. Yeah, pretty much agree on all parts. Tier 2, you've got Melodious at Tier 2. I have them at Tier 3, which is very different from literally everyone. I had them at Tier 3 last week as well when we did this UMSO. UMSO, I believe, had them at Tier 1. I don't know if he still has them Tier 1. I don't know what it is this week. But a lot of people still consider Melodious to be the second best deck, even though statistically it is not the second best deck. Tell me a bit about Melodious.
I would say Melodious, for the same reason that I was defining Harpies. They don't have too many weaknesses. It's just that their primary weakness is Harpy. So for that reason, I don't think you can put. Like, I hard disagree with putting Melodious tier 1 just because its biggest weakness is the best deck. Or, like, what I would think is the best deck.
There you
You
go.
know? But in terms of other weaknesses, there's not too much else that is reliably dealing with the power options of Melodious. You look at Bloom Diva. So many decks will like have a really hard time like getting rid of Bloom Diva. They need certain like card combinations. They need a negate plus something else. They need um, you know, fiendish chains, or they have to like change what tech cards they're running, even if those tech cards might not be good against Harpy.
There you go.
Um, and then beyond that, there's Score the Melodious Diva, which is just a hand trap that you know, you can't anticipate. So you not only have to combat the fusions, but you also have to deal with them potentially having a hand trap that you can't even attack in.
There you go. I'm about to drop some hard facts, Negative1. You ready?
Yep.
Melodious. I have not seen the power ranking for this week, and I won't see them for another hour or so while they're being processed, but I have seen the raw data from Melodious. Since Melodious has come out, they have never been higher than third place in the power ranking. This upcoming power ranking is going to be their lowest spot. It's either going to be fifth or sixth, which is very
Oh.
concerning. And on top of that, they are the third most played deck since their inception, pretty much,
Mm.
into the metagame. I think what's interesting about Melodious is when they first became popular, I would have agreed they were pretty much the second best deck in the game. They did just have a horrible time with Harpy. Like whenever I see Melodious, even like just high prize pool tournaments, whenever they win against Harpies, it's usually the Harpy player that fumbles the bag, right? It's not really the Melodious popping off too hard, or a side deck card. Which side deck? Always, of course,
Hmm.
you want to build around your weaknesses in the side deck. But what has been super interesting with Melodious is they seem to not be able to adjust because people have adjusted and put counters in their deck. You know, things like Forbidden Chalice have gone way up. I think it's being used more in tournaments than Book of Moon sometimes, probably because of Melodious. It took decks like Thunder Dragon and Blue Eyes and all that, those decks that we thought might come back, pretty much took them out of the metagame. But ever since like doing something in the meta for like those things, the initial first week, they have failed to actually do anything else, and people just have kind of, it's like, well, if I'm going to enter the tournament, might as well just pack a Bloom Diva out and I'm good to go. The only thing that's really like getting people still is Score. Score off the top has won so many games, and it's really hard to play around if your deck doesn't inherently play around it. But this deck also has the highest loss rate against rogue decks, specifically decks like Resonators and ironically enough, Noble Knights. Whenever you see Noble Knights make it to
All
like
right.
finals or top four, you look at their what they win against. It was like 3 or 4 Melodious in a row, and you're just like, what is going on? What is this?
All
So
right.
there you go.
It's a very interesting statistic. I can
Yeah,
understand why a lot of people would put Melodious as tier 3. So
yeah.
I understand that point.
There you
I'll
go.
concede that.
Fun facts. Tier 3. This is where we disagree a lot. I think though when it comes to tier 3, I said this before, the line between tier 3 and rogue is so thin, I can like barely see it these
Yeah,
days. Yeah. So I'm not
especially
surprised.
this format
Yeah.
for sure.
But one thing that we do have on here, D Hero, I have it as tier 1. A lot of the community is we talked about this yesterday when you were on cast. You said a lot of people are like overhyping D Hero or just putting too much effort in D Hero, but you have them at tier 3. Tell me about D Hero.
D Hero is an interesting case where I see a lot of people talk about how strong D Hero is, and then I try it myself, and I'm like, I'm not so sure I agree how strong a lot of people evaluate it as. Um, I think D Hero, it can have some interesting strengths. I think the biggest strengths include, just to list a few, Book of Moon, Treacherous Trap Hole, and Mass Change,
Wait a second. Hold on. Hold
and
up.
Mystical Space Typhoon.
Oh god. Yeah.
And if you look at three of those four, those you can run in a lot of other decks. So I'm thinking like, well, the biggest strength of this deck, I feel like it's almost not really the D hero cards themselves, because if you look at Mass Change doesn't resolve very well against Harpy, because if they chain the Cyber Slash effect to the Mass Change, the monster will get bounced. So in a way, it's really just Book of Moon, Treacherous, and MST. So for that reason, I'm not so sure if I can agree that D Hero is, you know, like really high up in the metagame.
There you go.
I'm willing to be proven wrong, but for now, I kind of think that D Hero, its biggest strengths are exhibited by multiple other strategies, while its weaknesses are that it can kind of have very slow hands. Very monster heavy hands don't do a whole lot. Spell heavy hands don't do a whole lot. And just generally, because you run so many cards, you are not as likely to see Book of Moon as like a Harpy deck is going to. So that is kind of my current thoughts. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to wait and see.
This is where you just go, no, -1's always right. He's never wrong, boys. Hey, listen, like, comment, subscribe. D Hero, I don't really have that many statistics on them. Last week, they were the second most played deck, and in second place. I think what's really interesting is usually on our power rankings, Harpies have just had like a 30, 40, 50 point lead against like everybody. So it was like really rough to say, oh, this is a tier 2 or this is because they were just ahead of everyone by crazy points. D Hero is the first deck to be only a couple of points behind, like 3 or 4 points behind in like months, which is depressing in itself. And I don't know how many points they have this week, but they are either going to be in first or second place, probably second place. Just looking at the raw data again. So it's 2 weeks in a row that they have done that. And this is after the quote-unquote Harpy adjustment, where they've put like things like MST in their deck and stuff, which was thought to be for DDD, but turns out actually we're doing it for D Hero. So we'll have to see where D Hero kind of falls in line. If I had to predict in the upcoming weeks what's actually going to happen is just D Hero settles into tier 2, because the deck does have a lot of issues. It's just Destiny Hero. It's old Masked Hero, sack change. The only difference is they have a turn 1 now with the Dreadmaster, and this is the 10% of the Rye report. That's my opinion. They are statistically tier 1, but I don't think they're going to stay there. I would be very surprised. I think it'd be more likely that they end up dropping to tier 2. They like you said, TTH, mass change, MST. Searchable MST does have a huge meta impact. Don't get me wrong. Guy of the Fierce Knight literally died because of this. And they were a top 3 deck up until this deck was discovered. So it definitely has meta impact. It's like a high degree because you can search that MST. But there's nothing inherently like good about the deck itself. That being said, it's broken anime skills, right? Like Automats, what made them good was their generic toolbox. The Automat cards themselves were, okay, you get recovery and stuff like that, but the best part of you is your generic toolbox. If I take that away, it doesn't matter that you have all these other tools. So, like, I can understand kind of D Hero, like that aspect of them just abusing searchable, MST and stuff.
For sure. That's a pretty fair take.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your tier 3.
Oh, baby, Magnets and Tech Genus. All I got to really say about them is they keep winning or top 8ing our tournaments. I wish they'd stop because Magnets are really boring to play or really boring to watch. And Tech Genus is the flight control version that is, in my opinion, not as fun to watch as the Halberd Cannon. A lot of people will probably think opposite. Halberd Cannon it was a little bit more linear, but hey, I think Black Rose and Decorion is also linear, let me tell you. I'm not a big fan. Yeah. I'd rather see big dumb boss monster. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Magnet's kind of the Destiny hero. There's always one Destiny hero deck on the tier list just because of how dumb the skill is, and right now it's Magnet instead of Yosenju, and Tech Genus just keeps, top 8ing, or I think they've won 2 tournaments in a row. But yeah, they're just really performing well in the previous tier, the previous power rankings, and in the future power rankings, they're going to be performing well as well, pretty much. Rogue decks, though, oh baby, the 2 we agree on, and I think honestly you could put like a bunch of stuff down here. Water Xyz. People are going to get mad at me because they're like, Rye, this should be tier 3 at least. It just won Battle Step. Nah, I don't know, dude. Like 1 week, Water Xyz is like 10th place. The next week, they're 5th place, then they're 2nd place, then they're not there at all. A deck that just relies on top decking your Floodgates and your Divas, and they're just kind of lucking their way into these wins, I don't feel confident to say is part of the meta. They're just like, how do you prepare against a top deck Diva? You know what I mean? Like, hope you have Chalice? Yeah. I think it's just a factor of the meta being weak. And sometimes they go in and steal wins, and sometimes those wins happen to be $100 tournaments. So that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have anything else to add about water? Was there anything else to say?
Well, I'd say water is very similar to D Hero, where the biggest strengths, well, it has Diva, I'll say that, but some of the biggest strengths of Water Exceed are MST, Book of Moon, Treacherous Trap Hole, and
Oh man.
I think to a degree it's like, why would you be playing Water when you could be playing D Hero?
Yeah. I think a lot of people were saying, oh, well, water has Abyss Dweller, so shouldn't they do well against D Hero? But Abyss Dweller, anyone can also make that, you know? It's not exclusive to water, it's just stronger in water, that's all.
Yeah,
So again, there's no real reason to run water, but it is solid in the game, and it's still gonna win tournaments here and there.
yeah. I think it has the the Abyss Dweller is effective against D Hero, and I think that's a fair like
Yeah.
assessment. However, as you said, anybody can make Abyss Dweller. It's pretty
Yeah.
generic.
Yeah.
It's just that water makes it pretty much every time. So
Pretty much.
it does have that niche.
There you go. Resonators. Tell me a bit about resonators. I love resonators.
Resonator is another deck that I think can sort of compete on the rogue level. As you can see, I have a lot of decks. I think I even maybe put magnets on my rogue list, but
We'll talk.
Gian was
Yeah,
like,
we'll blame
okay, he's
Gian. We'll
putting
blame
too
Gian.
much. He's putting the whole kitchen sink on here. Just
Listen,
wrap it up.
Gian is he's a hard worker. Okay.
Yeah, nothing below though. But yeah, um, but Resonator is definitely it has outs to a lot of stuff. You can uh, use cards like Caius the Shadow Monarch, which are really good banishing tools. So it can deal with like Harpy boards, it can deal with Melodious boards, it can deal with D Hero. Um, it has once again Mystical Space Typhoon, Treacherous Trap Hole, and Book of Moon available to it. So I think that's a big plus. You look at uh, you look at Resonator compared to some of the other decks, and it's running a very small list. And I think that's generally appreciated when you can run fewer cards. You'll like have a more consistent game plan.
Resonators deserve the nerf, dude. They have a 5 card extra deck right now. Like, who the hell wants to summon Red Nova
Yeah.
Dragon? That's just not something we want to do when Harpy's the best deck in the game. Like, come on, man. I don't know. Resonators, I love them. I wish they would like give them something. At the very least, let them play the other Red Dragon they just released instead of just Red Nova. It's Garbojo.
Yep.
Thunder Dragon, I actually don't have a lot to say about Thunder Dragon because I rarely see them. I think Battle Step yesterday was the first time I've seen them forever. The last time I've seen them do something was when Zaid King won that Konami Invitational with them, the crazy best of 5 or whatever they were doing. Tell me a bit about Thunder Dragon.
Yeah, so Thunder Dragon, and by extension, like Infernity and Crystron, these decks, I would say, are very much in a very similar camp where they have a very strong game plan. You think Thunder Dragon, a lot of the Thunder Dragon monsters are very good resource wise, and Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, we all know, is one of the best boss monsters in the game.
Yeah.
Non-targeting destroy 2 cards is very impactful, and it can win games almost single-handedly. The biggest weakness of Thunder Dragon has historically been floodgates. Necro Valley,
Oh my
preventing them
god.
from interacting with the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, negating all their dark effects. It does have a lot of dark monsters, so there are ways that Thunder Dragon can just like be kept out of playing the game. In addition to the potential inconsistency of Thunder Dragon that we all know and some of us love, some of us maybe not so much.
Not the
But
Thunder
yeah,
Dragons I play against, dude. They always open the Lupine Melody. It's every game.
yeah,
I swear to God, that's it's rigged, dude. No, I agree. It's the side deck, right? I think without a side deck, Thunder Dragon would actually be probably, it would be somewhere in the tier list for when it comes to. You'll probably see a bunch of Thunder Dragon in KC Cup. Shoot, they always do
yeah,
well in KC Cup. That's just the style of Thunder Dragon. So it's just getting hit with Necro Valley sucks, Shadow Imprisoning sucks, all those floodgates just you can't do anything about it because you just don't have the space. What are you supposed to do? Like You're already running a crazy number of cards. You want to run more MST and Cosmic in there, you're gonna brick. Like, I don't know. And then you talk about Infernity and Crystron. Crystron, yeah, I agree with that one actually, especially after seeing it do work. Got to the finals yesterday. Infernity though, that's out of nowhere. Oh my
This is
lordy.
probably the craziest one on here.
Hey, listen, I
But
love Infernity. Tell me about Infernity.
so uh, this is only partially clickbait. All right,
Hey,
but
let's go.
but yeah, Infernity. It's very notable because even in a side deck format, the power Infernity offers, it can just beat anything despite you siding for it.
Yeah,
So for those that don't know, the modern Infernity build is with the skill Ghost of a Shell or Shell of a Ghost.
yeah,
I
Shell of a Ghost, I
forget the.
think. Yeah,
It's one of
something
the
like
two.
that.
I forget.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it gives the deck another copy of Infernity Launcher, and with that, it's able to end on a board of Rhinoceros, and then a Synchro, and then another Archfiend. And beyond that, a non-target, like we all know how strong Rhinoceros is.
mm-hmm.
It also ends on like an Infernity Barrier, which is a Omni negate. It can negate any monster effect, spell card, or trap card, and a Infernity Break, which is a targeting removal. So if Infernity opens that combo, you have to think what is reliably beating that combo.
Book of Moon.
It's a lot like Cyber Dragon in that sense, where if you open the full combo, you're not losing.
Yeah,
You steamroll everything. All right, thank
yeah.
you for playing. Go Cyber Dragon Cord. All right, next game.
Infernity has always been one of those fun decks to see when it pops off, and then like they get Book of Moon or they get Sphere Creeboed, and then there's like, okay, well, this sucks. Life sucks now.
Yeah,
But I don't think we see that much. I mean, who's playing Sphere Creeboed? Magnet. Uh, is that it? I don't really think anyone else is really playing Sphere right now. So yeah, maybe this is actually a pretty good metagame for Infernity. Hey, listen, I have an Infernity
yeah.
ult. I'll try it and let you guys know.
Maybe I'm off on this one, but I do think Infernity is um, the power ceiling is so high enough that at least maybe not in tournaments, but in KC Cup, I think
Oh, and Casey Cup for
potentially
sure. Yeah.
a deck that can just auto win and not let your opponent play. That's a pretty strong quality.
And I think one thing too people don't know is Infernity Break. You can banish stuff like your launcher from the grave, so that you literally don't even need those cards anymore
Yeah,
to get your pop. It's pretty consistent when it goes off. The only problem is your opening hand is super important. That's why that version plays things like the advanced draw and all that stuff
yeah.
because they really want to get that opening for them. And then Cristrons, the untargetable Cristrons, there's a lot to say. I know you've got a lot to say about Cristrons. In one
Yeah.
sentence, why are Cristrons rogue?
All right. This bias time. Bias time.
Biased.
Full
No, I mean,
disclosure.
hey, listen, the
Bias time.
stats back you up. Cristrons have been popping the fuck off. Listen, they've been
Oh,
doing well. They've
well,
been doing
well,
good.
that's good to hear. So it's not all bias. Um, but yes, Cristrons are mostly strong because of their non-targeting or their targeting protection through Mud Dragon, and in addition to their existing plays, they can somewhat still consistently get to them. Also, the territory of the Sharks gives them access to their higher level synchros more consistently, as well as Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark and Abyss Dweller, which is pretty good against D Hero.
There you go. Crystron's best deck. They made it to the finals yesterday. I'm a believer, dude. That was crazy seeing the plays that they could do. We even saw him playing things like the Bryonic and the Gungear and all this stuff to like outbloom Diva and stuff. So it seems to be doing well. It's like near an instant win against Harpies too. I feel if the Mud Dragon shows up, I don't know what they're supposed to do against that. It's always pretty funny to watch. And that's pretty much any final closing thoughts on this metagame. I feel like the metagame is shrinking. A lot of people are probably going to be disappointed with this tier list because of things like DDD, things like the new decks not being on here. Really, the only major change is like how D Hero, Harpy, and Melodious are interacting with each other. It kind of feels like with everything else, just kind of existing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I do want to say, despite I have Harpy, Melodious, D Hero in different tiers, I would say the tiers are very close together.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
maybe I should have said that at the start, but it's very uh, it's very close in proximity in terms of power level. Like Harpy, and that really excuse me, that really shows because despite Harpy being like tier 1 and there being so little on the tier list, so many decks can compete and so many decks can either top tournaments or win tournaments or so on.
Except Necros and Gishki and DDD. And
Okay. No, Konami's never sponsored this.
That's pretty much it. I agree with -1. This meta is much smaller than what a lot of us were expecting. Harpies is just the deck that's kind of. It's actually funny because I feel like if we nerfed Harpies, I don't actually know what would be the best deck because back row would come back heavy. D Hero still has MST. Melodious is still Melodious. I really don't know. What do you think would be? Is it just open to debate? Is there a clear cut answer?
It's very hard to say because if you remove Harpy, then what's stopping something like Evil Eye or Triman?
True.
Those decks are absolutely demolished by Harpy, which is kind of sad because I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But what's stopping that from coming back? It seems. I think it's very up in the air if Harpy gets just even nudged out of the picture just a little bit. I think it completely flips the format on its head. I think it'll be really interesting.
Well, there you guys go. I hope you enjoy the new Rye Report format. I enjoy having guests on to compare lists. It's always fun to have differing viewpoints. And remember, in the wise words of Umso, you should be forming your own opinion on the metagame. Take my data, take -1's data, and then form your own opinion. Because at the end of the day, if you're taking other people's ideas into consideration, you're always playing to, their tempo. You'll never be able to play to your own tempo. Maybe you've got a secret, meta list that we don't know about, and that's when you enter the tournaments at our Discord, !Discord down in the description. Prove us wrong. Win with Necros. Show the power of DDD. And then maybe you'll end up on the tier list next time. Who knows? We'll credit you from that point. That's pretty much it from me. -1, any shoutouts?
Just shoutouts to DLE, baby.
Hey, let's go. Until next
Thanks
time,
for having
boys.
me.
See ya.
See ya.